I made it. I'm down at the Bristol Craft Beer Festival. It was looking a bit dismal earlier, but it's brightened up and the beer is already flowing and I can't wait to try my first one. I'm really looking forward to trying some of the latest offerings from the Bristol breweries, see what they've got on tap here. Wiper and True, Arbor, Yonder, and I'm really looking forward to meeting the likes of Kernel, Signature and Salt. But first of all, I need to get some beer in me, so let's go and have some fun. What is the thing with Signature? What's it about?
So, well, it started with us, we were collabing with bands when we first started. So we started with the Rifles. And since then, done stuff with Shikari, Mastodon, Alt J, The Darkness, we did a Christmas. Yeah, so it's kind of just keeping that whole music thing going.
So how does the music play into the beer?
So, yesterday we had a beer on with Hot Chip. So Hot Chip actually came in and physically brewed it with us. We've also just done a thing that was in the news recently where we're giving away £250,000 worth of beer to small venues.
Oh right.
Helping them get back on their feet.
Wow. Okay.
So inject some like zhuzh back into the music industry.
So which is the one that that Hot Chip did with you? Is that here today?
It was.
Oh.
Sold out. It was a rice lager.
Okay.
With Sicilian lemon.
Was there any particular reason why, like when you work with different bands to do beers or whatever,
so
is there any, do they have an input?
We've just done a beer with a band called Yonica from Brighton. That was to coincide with the release of their new album.
Oh yeah.
And it was sold at their album release show.
Wow.
And then we did Bigfoot Festival a few weeks ago. Okay. And we actually done quite a few collabs there. So all the bands that we had on, about 4 or 5 of those we did collab beers with. So when they were on, you could literally drink the beer that they made while you're watching them.
Wow, to be honest, that's quite a unique angle.
Yeah man, it's one of the, like, as far as like unique selling points goes,
yeah,
no one else is really doing it.
So what's the best? Well, I got to try this Sicilian lemon. Yeah. And citrus sour.
For me personally, it's the Nightliner, but that's just because I love coffee.
All right, well I'll try that one as well.
Yeah. One of each, yeah.
Yeah, one of each, yeah.
So they're like the opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah,
so you've got crisp, a little bit sour, quite lemony, and then that's essentially like the espresso martini version of it.
Really refreshing. Yeah. So this is like similar to the one you did with Hot Chip.
So imagine the Hot Chip one, imagine that, but quite a bit lighter.
Wow, okay.
Like thinner.
Even lighter?
Yeah, so
I find this quite
it's
light.
the heavier cousin of that one.
I'll tell you what, I'll get out of your way, try these, and I'll see you in a bit. Cheers, Mitch. Thanks a lot. Well, Mitch said he likes coffee, and that's what this is. But it's got a little bit more to it. There's a kind of a creaminess, a slight vanilla-iness coming out of it as well, which is really nice. It feels nice and smooth. Nothing magical or nothing like crazy unexpected. It's just a nice, smooth vanilla coffee pour. And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for the fact that there was millions more beers to taste here, then I could happily drink quite a lot of this. However, something tells me that it's pretty dangerous. So I'm going to leave this for now. Definitely, Sicilian lemon comes right out. Although I'm surprised that Mitch told me that the version they made with Hot Chip was even lighter, because I do perceive this to be a very light beer. Although it does have a distinctive sort of kettle sour kind of flavour. Really refreshing, a little bit of kind of zinginess from the lemon, but not too much that makes it overpowering. I could only drink a little bit of this before I got bored, if I'm honest, because it's so light and kind of unassuming. However, for a small sample or like a half pint, it's a really, really enjoyable flavour. And I think the concept of working with different bands to make different beers is actually a really cool angle. For a really light, refreshing sour on a Sunday afternoon, this Sicilian lemon really hits the high note. So the table beer is like the most popular single beer from any non-Bristol brewery that we sell in the shop. Oh yeah.
This is not regular table beer. It's a mixed fermentation Saison that we've dry hopped with Hallertua.
Great. Well, in that case, I have a try of the that one and the porter or the experimental hop IPA. I might have to try that actually.
I think the IPA, because it does not taste 6.6%, even though it is, and it's annoyingly nice.
Kernel. Where's Kernel going?
Kernel is going to continue sticking to its traditional styles. We don't like to mix things up too much, but in the last year and a half we have moved to making lagers.
Ah, okay, yeah. I see as well. There's like a Dunkel, which is that a newish
So
thing?
we did make it at the very end of last year. So this is the last couple of kegs of it, but we'll be making it again this winter. Pre-pandemic, we'd never made a lager before. Obviously, we didn't want to rush through lots of ales and tables, and we didn't know when we were going to reopen and how much we were going to sell. So we decided to move on to making some lagers, and they've all gone down very well. They've been received really well. So in the last year, we've made a Pils, a Food lager, and a Dunkel.
Yeah.
And so I think lagers is where we are looking, but that's been quite a big step.
I might have to come back for that Dunkel in a little bit actually to see. Well, I'm going to go away and have a try of these. So this was the aged table beer, a slightly stronger version of the table beer that just sells incredibly well because it's so flavoursome yet still so light. But you can really smell in this one. Woo! Quite acidic, sort of sourness, like a kettle sour, but it's quite far removed from the original table beer. But then the taste is so light. I think what's really good about Kernel is that do manage to balance like light flavours together so that they still have an impact. You know, they don't need like intensity for it to be entertaining on the tongue. That is a really nice light sour, and you'd have no idea it was even 4.5%. I can see why they brought this one down. I always like to try the experimental hops. Don't think I've come across the HBC 431 yet. Not sure if I'll be able to tear it apart from the Mosaic that was in there, and was it possibly Citra? Forgotten now. But there is kind of a really pineapple-y, botanical, prickly kind of flavour, which is quite unusual. Wow. The flavour in there's a sort of starfruit kind of stone fruit, but more of a bitter sort of starfruit with a slight spice. Really hard to describe, but really fresh and fruity. And it even has a flavour that I think is coming out of the hops, that somehow accentuates the light malt flavours that are coming out. There's kind of a sweetness. The sweetness that's coming out of the malt. And I think there's like this sweetness coming out of the hop. Like the hop gives a sense of a sweetness. And then how it's balanced with like this biscuitiness that's coming out of the malt, and the bitterness is almost blowing my mind. It's a perfect balance between all those flavours. And I've actually tasted nothing like that before. So I hope that I see more beers with 431 in them. I've come back for the Dunkel because I want to see how you're going with the lager styles. I really think that the German lager styles are an amazing test of a brewery's ability to just create beer exactly the way they imagine it, because the fine tuning required is so precise. It's hard to hide behind loads and loads of flavour unless it's kind of a stout or something really heavy. There's nowhere really to hide. And with a lager, you really can see if the brewing process has kind of been done properly and if the recipe has been truly really well balanced. This Dunkel smells just right, to be honest. A little bit like an English brown ale, a woody, kind of polished woody aroma, a little bit of sweetness, but then you've also got that roasty undertone as well. It smells quite German. Wow. But you know what? It tastes of tea. I mean, not exactly like tea, but it's really tea-like. I can see why Becky told me the brewers need this after a long shift, almost exclusively. This is a little bit off-piste, but it actually tastes a lot like a black Tetley's cup of tea. But you've also got that hoppy bitterness that comes along at the end, and a very refreshing kind of crisp beginning. It's an unusual Dunkel, I'll give you that. It smelt not particularly unusual. It's just in the flavour where that tea-likeness kind of comes through, which, to be honest, I can't complain about because it tastes great. Well, so I've tried all three, and all I can say is big salute to the Kernel. Dark Star. What's the story behind Dark Star? Because it's been like around a few years. I haven't tried loads of your beers, to be honest. It's kind of like, there's crafty stuff, there's traditional stuff.
Yeah.
What's the thing?
So the brewery was founded in 1994.
Wow.
In the cellar of a pub in Brighton called the Evening Star, hence the name. The two founders went over to America and loved the hops over there, so they snuck some of those hops back in their suitcases, some of the more like fruity, aromatic hops. And the aim of the game really was to create a craft beer but in a cask, so you'll notice that all of our beers are in casks.
All of them?
Yeah.
It's all cask. Oh, you
beers.
don't do any keg?
No, these are all cask on site. So,
Oh,
yeah.
right, okay.
So that's really cool. It's like more craft beer but in a cask.
Craft beer in cask,
So that's what
okay.
kind of makes it that sort of unique style of beer.
Yeah.
You've got the Hophead here, which is the original, sort of the OG beer.
Okay.
And these are all our sort of classics. And then these four beers down here are more seasonal.
Have you tried them all, or
Yes,
not?
I have.
Okay.
I have. They're all delicious. They're all very different, which is really nice as well. They're all very unique. My personal favourites have to be the American Pale Ale.
Yeah.
I love the Orbital, which is more of like a best bitter. And then out of the seasonal ones here, my absolute favourite is the Quake. It's got some delicious mango flavours. It's really, really nice.
Alright, I reckon what I'll do for now is I'll go for one traditional and one more crafty. I like the idea of craft beer in cask. I reckon I'm going to go for the Orbiter, you know, because I always like to try it best bitter, because I think it's a good measure of a brewery.
I agree.
So let's try that.
It's delicious. I think you're going to like.
Okay, and let's try, were you saying the Quake?
Quake's delicious.
Yeah, let's go with the
that's my
Quake.
favourite.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Great, thanks. Cheers, Georgina, thank you. So I always like to try the most traditional styles that a brewery makes. It's interesting to see that difference in approach to the brewing. But as Georgina was telling me, Dark Star started in 1994, so they had kind of a more traditional approach at that time, and obviously have adapted, and I think quite well. They're one of the breweries that started off kind of on the cusp between traditional and craft, and have kind of just maintained that level. So this was the Orbiter, a citrusy best bitter. Let's see. All from cask. It's a very light best bitter, but it's quite cold, like it's been nicely chilled, which obviously for a traditional best bitter, some people still say room temperature, but I think most beers are nicer now, being a little bit chilled. And it is exactly as they say, it's very clean. It's lighter than I'd imagine a typical best bitter to be. That is actually really lovely. Again, it's something that I'd probably enjoy a half pint of or a 2/3 of before I wanted to move on to something else. But absolutely no problem here. You can tell they've been brewing for a long time. And that's probably why Dark Star have over time managed to kind of get their name out into many, many places. But at the same time, they haven't completely sold out, which I appreciate. Whoa, okay. So this is the Quake. I'm almost getting kind of a little bit of a cheesy fruit kind of aroma from that, which is a bit interesting. I do think it's an interesting idea to sort of like make proper craft beers in cask, because it inevitably changes the feel of the beer. And there is a real fullness to it. For me, there's kind of a peachiness, kind of pineapple. It's kind of halfway between a traditional IPA and a juicy, punchy craft IPA, but not either one. Really refreshing. Possibly not one that I'd have again because of the fruity kind of overlay. It feels a little bit separate to me from the actual base beer. The offering from Dark Star over there is humongous. I can't try all of their beers today. There are so many other breweries. However, what is clear is that they are a shining star of the brewing scene. Cheers, Dark Star, or should I say, Superstar. So, some new beers. Right, I'm going to have to try this new Saison and the new Pale, I reckon. What kind of barrel is the Pale aged in?
So it's a mix of barrels. So what it actually is we've had loads of different pales in lots of different kinds of barrels. I think it's predominantly white wine barrels that we went for. But then we've blended a lot of those barrels together and this is what the result is. So we've tapped different barrels which all had kind of different combinations of beers.
Oh, really?
And then you kind of play with the levels, see which barrels are bringing what flavours and mix them together.
Are all these barrels at the Wiper and True at the brewery?
No, so we have a separate site called the Barrel Store, which is like just around the corner, and that's where, because we also do our mixed fermentation bits there, so that kind of needs to be separate so we don't get Brett in, you know, in the name.
Yes, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we have, it's kind of cool, so we have like walls and walls of wrapping with all our different barrels in, and Will, who's the brewer at the Barrel Store, to make this, just basically kind of tinkers with different doses and different combinations and puts it together. Do you want to try a little bit of that?
So let's try a little bit of that.
Nice one. I think it's quite a divisive beer. It's I guess it like pushes the boundaries of what a beer is. It kind of, you get a lot of oaky wood. Some people get like a cherry yogurt vibe from it. It's quite tanniny, quite dry.
Like cherry wood, woody.
It's hard to kind of explain the flavours,
and I see where the yogurt is coming from. Although it's not lactosey.
No, it's just got that like tang.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of like high grade fromage frais, but without the milkiness.
Nice, without
you know what I mean? Like those nice sort of. I really liked fromage frais, but to be honest, it's been many years since I had them. Can I try the Saison as well?
This is quite a traditional Saison base, and then we have an apple orchard as well, where we grow the apples for Old 12th Night, which is our orchard ale, and there's a lot of wild elderflowers growing there, so we picked some fresh elderflowers, and that's involved in the beer latterly. So it's quite subtle, you get just a little bit of kind of floral finish from the elderflower.
Well, I'll go away and give these a proper try. Cheers, Alice. Thanks a lot.
Enjoy your day.
Go with these. I'm going to try the Saison properly first because it's a little bit lighter. The pale blend is much more strong in flavour, so I don't want that to kind of ruin my palate. Really vanilla-y sort of flavour coming off of the Saison though. Creamy, light, with a sort of like general mixed spice in the background. And there's the elderflower. I wouldn't have known it from the aroma, but it comes through really nicely. It's quite a different take from Yonder's Elderflower IPA, the next day. A little bit lighter on the elderflower, softer on the bitterness as well, I would say. Very slightly sweeter. Overall, a lighter beer. Obviously, it's got those spices from the yeast that come out of the Saison yeast, compared to Yonder's more sort of full-on flavours because it was an IPA. But actually, from what I remember of the next day, if we were to sit these two beers down, they would really complement each other. The IPA with its bitter elderflower sort of aspects, and this one with its much lighter sort of elderflower aspects. And both of these beers have been made from foraged elderflower from around the Bristol area. So I think that's really cool, actually. In the past, breweries haven't really tended to dabble so much in making the elderflower beers for some reason, but I really like the fact that the Bristol breweries are sort of going out and doing that now. Definitely be finishing this sample. All right, so now it's time for the Pale Blend 2021. Alice was telling me that Will slaves away in the barrel store, mixing little bits of these different barrel-aged pales, just to find the right blend to make this. And honestly, it is nuts. There is so much going on in here, but it is all leveled out into this one kind of piece. Really cherry-y, but also really woody. I mean, it's literally cherry wood and kind of vanilla yogurt, but it's not really milky like a lactose beer. It's very clean somehow. Essence of red wine comes through, but then you've also got the white wine as well that's kind of like supporting that tannic kind of quality that it has. You know what, so far this has been my favourite beer of the festival because those flavours are so rarely found in a good beer that manages to balance lightness with flavour. Even some kind of lambic beers or other barrel-aged beers, they often for me are too intensely infused with those woody, fruity flavours, and it kind of detracts a little bit from just the sense of just drinking a nice, refreshing beer at the end of the day. Whereas this has really balanced that really well. And I'll definitely be coming back for more before I leave. With this beer, Wiper and True have truly wiped the floor with the competition. Cheers. Verdant is always good. We get quite a lot in the shop, although I haven't had the Lucky Slurps yet.
Lucky Slurps is great. It's using Cryo pop.
Yeah.
So a new technology in hop processing.
Yeah.
So the hops are frozen at cryogenic temperatures to basically retain as much flavour and aroma oils that they can.
Yeah.
It's incredibly well balanced. Hides its ABV incredibly well. It's still got that Verdant, soft body, very hoppy aroma and flavour.
Yeah.
But it's just a wonderfully balanced sort of pale.
Do you know how the cryo hop process kind of works? Because it's something I haven't been able to quite get my head around.
You take the flour
Yeah.
and you process the hop flour, make it and pelletize it
Yeah.
to retain as much of the oils and the compounds in it. They freeze it, basically.
Right, okay.
So normal pelletizers aren't frozen.
So they get the flour, compress it.
Yeah,
I
so
guess.
you strip the inside the flour are little tiny stamens and lupulin, so you've got all the pollen inside.
Yeah, yeah.
So you strip that out, get rid of the leaf and all the stuff, and then basically you process the flour to get the most out of the inside.
Right.
It gets pelletized into thing. Cryo is frozen.
Right. So it just keeps it.
Yeah, yeah,
keeps it there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's also slightly finer.
Yes.
So when it dissolves in liquid, you get more surface contact.
Okay.
So instead of being like the texture of granular sugar,
Yeah.
it's more like sort of almost floury, talcum powdery. It's a lot finer, so you get more surface area.
And how about the Unlike Stars by comparison? Is that sort of
That is
similar?
very much classic Verdant IPA. True to style in the fact it's got that soft, pillowy mouthfeel and texture, and quite dank and quite resinous and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But very much classic Verdant, really.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I reckon I'll try some of the Lucky Slurps.
Yep.
And I love Whiplash.
They're on rotational here, so we've had two of their beers on this weekend, both double IPAs.
Yeah.
Slightly different. One's a bit more, has a slightly more bitter quality, a slightly more sort of pine element to it.
Yeah.
The one we've got on now is a lot softer.
I'll try a bit of the Lucky
Yep.
Slurps if possible, and Whiplash's Velouria.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, that's amazing. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Cornish brewery who have managed to generate this massive hype. I mean, like almost everyone is like Verdant, Verdant, Verdant. We love Verdant because all of their beers are just so soft, also really punchy, but somehow very verdant. And when you kind of get that really good one, there's no question of why. Wow. It's such a rounded beer. There are no spikes in any particular direction. It's just kind of a little bit lemony, and as always, really soft. They're the type of beer that you can just drink and drink and drink. And the roundedness of it, it's really impressive. So on to Whiplash. They're from Northern Ireland. Again, I generally find them to be very soft, light, insane kind of way, almost fluffy. But this one's a DIPA, Velouria, which I haven't seen in cans yet. So let's see how it goes. It's a weird one, actually. You know, I'm almost getting pasta coming out of the flavours in there, because there's a richness that kind of tastes nothing like tomato, but it reminds me of tomato, the richness of it, the slight acidity of it. It's in no way a sour. I mean, it is a DIPA, but it's really refreshing, almost kind of like gooseberry, these kind of like really light fruit flavours. It's a bit lemony. You know, I don't know what I think of this beer. It's kind of, there's lemon, there's a little tiny bit of tanginess, but not a sourness. It is very soft, it feels nice, but I expected a lot more punchy hop aroma and flavour. And what it's doing is delivering almost like a trimmed down experience of like a dank beer, so much so that all the dankness is kind of like stripped out, and you've just got this gooseberry sort of flavour. It's definitely interesting, but I was certainly coming in expecting something a lot more punchy. Now the Verdant, they'll be making the competition green with envy, whereas this Whiplash, not quite my tempo. What do you do at Newtown Park?
I'm the head brewer.
Oh, really? Okay, fantastic. So, what's the vision? Like, where are you?
Well,
what do you want to really?
So it's funny you ask. It's the first thing that the owner told me. Like, I want to make different beers, just like the Kernel, like good beers. Obviously, we're not trying to be there at all.
Yeah.
But it's just like that idea. We don't want to be like just making juice or just like IPAs. So obviously, IPAs and pale ales sell really well.
Yeah.
But we're trying to have like different beers and just like be really present in Bristol, like being really local. For the moment, we're doing like mostly pales, and like we have a Stout. Well, obviously the table beer, we've done a Saison, and we had 2 lagers, one just like a regular Pilsner and the rice lager.
What can you tell me about the 5.6?
So 5.6 is, well, it's an IPA, but not very strong, like low ABV. That's another thing we're really big on. I love drinking low ABV beers. So
Right. Okay.
So I'm doing a lot of like between 3 and 4%. Like 4.2, we have a lot of pale ales. 4.2, 3.9.
Yeah.
So very hoppy, very juicy, but like really low in ABV.
I'm gonna have this. Give this
So
one.
that's our IPA. That's 5.6%, and well, it's mostly New Zealand hops.
Okay. Yeah. There's a really creamy smell to it.
Well, 5.6 is a bit of a joke, because I don't know if you know about our owner Maka.
No, I don't know.
He had a homebrew cola, so our homebrewers grew. And when we had our first meeting, everybody brought a beer, and it was like, oh, every beer was 5.6.
Oh, really?
How strong is it? 5.6. Oh, 5.6. Do you know how strong it is? Oh, probably 5.6.
Ah, okay. So this is
it's a bit of an in joke for very few people, but
okay.
we had a double IPA, which we had a collab with Verdant.
Okay.
Because we share the tap room with Verdant. We have
Right. I didn't know.
yeah. Because Michael is friends from Adam from Verdant. They've been friends for a very long time.
Okay.
So and Verdant was looking for a place to brew their beers here in Bristol, so they decided to join forces, and
Makes sense.
we opened the tap room together, which obviously helped.
So have you been from the beginning with Newtown Park?
Yeah, well, we opened, so we brewed for the first time back in November.
Yeah.
So we're quite, 10 months old, basically.
Yeah. So
pretty
one of
fresh.
Bristol's newest breweries. Possibly Bristol's newest brewery?
I think so, other than the fact that there's a Bunny Hop brewery opening soon.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for the beer.
Cheers.
And cheers. Interestingly, this Newtown Park beer, Bristol's newest brewery, basically, it was inspired, the name at least, by a homebrew group. And it's interesting that, because what strikes me about it is that it actually really reminds me of like high grade homemade beer. When I've been judging beer in the national homebrew competitions, this flavour sometimes crops up, and I'm not exactly sure how the combination works. There is a creaminess to it, almost kind of like a pearlescent sort of flavour. I don't quite know how to explain it, But it's interesting, and I can't wait to go down and see Virginia and the others at Newtown Park and try some more samples of all the beers that they've been making recently. You don't have to be a genius like Isaac Newtown to see that these guys are really onto something. So, Salt. What is Salt's MO?
We are continuing the progressive spirit of Titus Salt. We founded Saltaire where we're based. So the idea is that our beers are progressive, hop forward and delicious.
So like we can expect really like hazy stuff, or like
in general,
not always,
not always, but both our kit and our brewing methods and the ingredients we use primarily impart that lovely soft haziness, generally reasonably low bitterness, high hop aroma.
I remember I definitely have like a conception that I've tried your beer and it's been really good, but I can't remember what one it was, and it's not something that I've like tried a lot of. So what have you got on today?
So Citra.
Oh yeah.
Which started off as a special for us, pretty very popular. It's now core beer, London Fog yeast, oats in the grist, and single hop Citra. Pretty simple but very effective.
So that's kind of one of your house offerings, really.
Indeed. Then we've got a double IPA over here.
Oh yeah.
Of our Hexagon project.
Oh, a big one.
So that's where the brewers can experiment with new ingredients, new processes, and just let their imagination run wild. This one is a HDHC double IPA, so it's high density hop charge. So the idea is there to create the biggest hop aroma we can using different hopping methods. So we use obviously pallets, but we also use cryo hops and hop oils as well.
High density hop charge.
Yeah, that's a new.
I haven't actually come across that acronym before.
I think Colin made it up. And we've also got an 11% Imperial Stout. We brewed that. That was our 100th guile, so it's been in keg for a couple of years, so it's really mellowed out, smooth.
Wow, I've got to try that. Cheers, Johnny. Thanks a lot, and I'll go away and try these.
Pleasure.
Cheers. All right, so we got some really juicy stuff from Salt Brewery here. The Citra, literally, it's like when you're going to brew a really juicy beer and you've got the pellet hops all open, it goes woof, right in your nose, and that is exactly what this Citra IPA is doing. Although, on the tongue, it is surprisingly light, you know. It doesn't have this kind of complex sort of dank hoppiness. There is a kind of raw hop sort of flannel flavour that I sometimes get, but its opacity and like the smell belies its lightness, which is interesting. But if I remember rightly, it was only about 4.5 or 5%, so I guess that kind of lines up. Definitely one that, if you're really into the full-on Citra hop smells and flavours, but you just want sort of something to session throughout the day, you could drink quite a few of these and be very satisfied. Now this one was the Hexagon project. So this was with the ADHC, the hop charge, and yeah, those hops are charged. There's a really resinous kind of flavour that's coming out of them. Really citrusy, soft in feel, but not soft in flavour. A really kind of rich, resinous, like, hop attack. But at the same time, still very refined and sort of narrow bandwidth of hop flavour, which is actually quite impressive. It really just kind of focuses on that very specific hop flavour that's coming through. What I find impressive about breweries that make beers like this is how they get the softness so reliably in the feel of the beer, and on your tongue it's just kind of really smooth, and it almost feels like a meal despite being apparently a light beer. Nice one. This is the one with cacao, raspberry and coconut. 11%, and I can smell the alcohol coming off it. But it's not hot in the nose, it's just kind of very bright. And the raspberry seems to have been blended really kind of softly and carefully with those roasty flavours that are coming out of the malt. That is beautiful. It is like much more raspberry on the tongue in the flavour than on the smell. You get the raspberry, but it's sort of like obscured slightly by the roastiness. But then when you drink it, it's super deluxe raspberry, really bright in flavour. And it reminds me a lot of the raspberry dark chocolate that you literally get in bars with the little pieces of raspberry like melted into it. Every single one of these beers are a masterpiece, and I definitely need to get more salt down in Bierkosm because they clearly know how to balance their ingredients, balance their flavours, and every single time create this lovely soft mouthfeel and just beautiful aroma. I'm incredibly impressed. And actually, as a selection of beers that I've got from one brewery across the entire board, these have impressed me the most. So thanks, Salt, for that assault of flavour. Cheers. There isn't all the time in the world, certainly just in the weekend, to talk to all the breweries that are here. But I've had some amazing conversations and tried some incredible beers. I really loved the dank, juicy beers from Salt. And one of my highlights as well, single beer wise, was the Pale Blend 2021 from Wiper and True. The flavours in that were just incredibly memorable and really stick in my mind. There's only 10 minutes left, so I'm going to use those to go and get as pissed as I can. Cheers. Thanks so much for watching another one of our videos. If you liked it or any ideas you got for future videos, let us know in the comments. Come down and visit, or if you can't, leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.